Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brent031. Appreciate everybody jumping on tonight. So we're going to have a live stream tonight. We've got a few folks running a little bit late, so hopefully they still join us. But just going around the horn here. We got Will. He's a instructor at the One Shepherd Leadership Institute. He has a law enforcement background. He also served in the United States Marine Corps, late 90s, early 2000s. So, Will, thanks for jumping on, brother.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
All right, next. Welcome back. Got the good Chad. Chad's been gone for a minute, but he's back on tonight, and he and I go way back. Served together in Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Chad is a United States Marine, served in OIF 1 and 2, specifically fought in the Battle of Fallujah, 1st LAR. Chad always brings an interesting and educated perspective to the chat. Chad, thanks for jumping on tonight.
Hoorah!
All right. Last, but hopefully not least, we got the good doc, Christopher Larson. So he's got his own YouTube channel, Christopher Larson. Be sure to check it out. But he's the original founder of the One Shepherd Leadership Institute. Doc is a U.S. Army veteran, served in Korea in the 80s, and always brings an outstanding perspective to the chat. And Doc, thanks for jumping on tonight.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Awesome. All right. So that is our panel so far. Again, hopefully we get some more cats and dogs on here in a little while. But we just thought we'd open up the floor, and we got the presidential race in its infancy going on. They just had the first Republican debate the other night. There's a lot of individuals on the stage, and former President Trump chose not to participate in that. And so just kind of curious where everybody's at, kicking things around, talk it out, and see who's catching people's interest. I don't think anybody's like firm set. I mean, I'm not. I don't know exactly who has my vote yet. I will tell you that whoever ultimately receives the Republican primary or who is the winner of the Republican primary is going to be my vote, hands down. So that's where I stand. But as far as like who I'm voting for in the primary, I haven't decided. I got some people I'm leaning towards, but since we don't have Les on yet, who wants to take the first go around here? All right, we got the good Chad. Welcome back, brother. Here we go. On you.
All right. So full disclosure, I did not watch the recent Republican debates. Why? Because quite frankly, I'm really disillusioned with the Republican Party. While there are some strong candidates like DeSantis, who I do kind of lean towards, the party itself is really weak in my book. I think we're in the midst of a civil war on the political right, and I fear that will cause 4 more years of Democrat rule. Sorry, Freudian slip. I think my position is best described more as anti-Democrat and not necessarily pro-Republican. I would gladly vote for a new Republican because a steaming pile of dog shit would govern this country better than Joe Stalin, Biden. I will conclude with that old saying, and I don't know who said this, but the person said that there are 2 political parties in the U.S., the stupid party and the dangerous party. Well, we have a Democrat Party who has wholeheartedly embraced Marxism and a Republican Party that is, for lack of a better word, in disarray. In a nutshell, I'm pretty pessimistic about the whole 2024 fiasco.
Go ahead, Doc. I know you got to.
Yeah. No, sadly, I'm in the same boat Chad's in. I would not describe myself as, a Republican. And to be fair, I've said this before, so I'll restate it for this evening, and that is that I've never been a card-carrying member of any single political party. And it's not that I'm against it. I earnestly thought at different points in my life, just because of the influence of different people in my life, I thought, well, maybe I'm a Democrat. Well, maybe I am a Republican. Well, maybe I am a libertarian. And I find too many, I find myself at odds with those parties. So I've never been a card-carrying member. And I tend to, vote along very independent lines. That said, I am a devout anti-Marxist. And so for that reason, and I'm not even, pulling cards there. I mean that. I consider myself an anti-Marxist, an anti-communist. And so for that reason, I tend to be anti-Democrat. Because they've embraced these ideologies. But there's nothing I see warm and fuzzy about the Republicans. The Republicans, first off, are a shadow of their former self. And I don't mean going back to the Lincoln Republican Party of the 1860s. I mean, going back to the Republican Party of the 1980s. You can't recognize them. If a Republican today ran against a Republican of the 1970s or 80s, we would call that Republican a screaming liberal Democrat. That's what they are. The Republicans I see today are anti-capitalism, anti-family, anti-religion. They're apologetically American. Enough to get them votes. They'll wear that flag pin enough to get them votes, but that's about as American as they get. They're oligarchies. They're part of the oligarchy, and so I just don't see the Republicans, being Republican. With that said, if I have to choose one on the list, I'm leaning towards DeSantis, simply because he puts words together that make sense. So that's my early leanings. But I will also add this. I've said this on your show before as well, Brent, and that is that I did not vote for Trump the first time. I voted against Trump the second time. If Trump actually gets that ticket and it's down to Trump or Biden, I will vote for Trump.
No, you got to clarify, Doc, because every time you say that, I know somebody's jumping through the screen. When you say you voted against Trump, did that mean you voted for Biden?
No.
All right.
No, I did not vote for Biden. And when I say the first time I didn't vote for him because he didn't win my vote. Second time he pissed me off because he's anti-gun, and so I was like, no, not putting an anti-gunner in there. Just can't do it. But there was other good reasons to vote against him. He had alienated his base in his 4 years, and so I voted against him. But right now, the reason I would vote for him against Biden, frankly, is because of what the Democrats have done against him. I'm an underdog kind of guy, and the Democrats have done every dirty trick. Hey, let's find reasons. Oh, he colluded with the Russians. No, he didn't. And all of it, everything that they're basically blaming Trump for, their guy has done worse, much, much worse. And this is just filthy politics. It has been filthy politics for 8 long years. I'm not one of those that say the last election was stolen. I'm saying what the independent researchers said, and that is we will never know who won the last. The margin of error was so incredibly large. Like typically you see a margin of error of 1, 2, or 3%. We were seeing margins of errors of 12% or greater. And so we'll never, ever know who won that election. But what we do know is that the news media, the mainstream news media, awarded Biden the election. And so in that sense, it was stolen. But it wasn't stolen at the poll, at the voting booths. It was stolen by the news media. So, and it's just been, you'd think that they would, having stolen an American election and turned us into a third world country, you'd think that the Democrats would be happy with that. But no, there's such a diseased group of people and such a diseased ideology that it will be my distinct honor to vote against them no matter what. I mean, that's why I'm saying if they put Trump up there, I'd vote for Trump.
Hey, let's welcome into the chat. We got Stoker Matic. And if you guys can't tell, he's freshly retired from the United States Army. So now that you have that 500-pound gorilla off your back, man, you might be able to speak a little bit more freely. But welcome to chat, man.
Yeah, right on. Thank you. My terminal leave ends October 20th, so we'll see. It'll be fun though. I had to make some room. So I did watch the debate, and I agree with a lot of what everybody has said. I think that there's only one candidate, and that's the governor of North Dakota, who talked like somebody who believed in the Constitution, who didn't want to use the federal government as a tool or an instrument to control and to govern, which is exactly what our the older folks in the Republican Party would talk about having a smaller government, not using those means and tools. I think, unfortunately, like we've seen in the past couple of elections, that 2024 is going to come down to 5 states. And, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, whoever the Republican Party gets, or whoever that nominee is, needs to be able to win those states. And because people are going to come out in droves either way, for or against somebody. And we just got to be smart, not only who's up for pres, but who that vice president is, to make sure that you can beat the guy that's in right now.
Yeah, so kind of circling back and talking about kind of what you finished up, Doc, about like the election being stolen and stuff like that. Like, I think in terms of like being on the Republican side and outside looking in, also, like the Democrats have just mastered the art of the early vote, right? So they get out there and they just get all these people early voting and stuff and all that shit, right? Going to the old folks' homes. I got my dogs going nuts now. Old folks' homes and ballot harvesting, all that stuff. And the Republicans have just been historically like, oh, we're going to show up the day of. We're going to show up the day of. And like, how many people do you know that are voters? And then it's like, oh, something comes up and they don't go. I know somebody this last election who told me, I asked him like, hey man, you going to go vote? You going to go vote? Oh yeah, I'm going to go. And then the next day it's like, yeah, I couldn't end up making it. But his liberal wife ended up going and voting. So, but anyways, and then you couple that with, all the bull crap with the, coronavirus and all the, regulations and rules that they bend to facilitate mail-in balloting. And like traditionally mail-in balloting, like you had, a certain number that are always just stricken, right? For whatever reason, like they didn't meet their criteria, right? They didn't follow the rules and the regulations, pertaining to how you fill out the mail-in ballots. And like, it seemed like that margin of error was just reduced so much, right? And they accepted way more mail-in ballots as opposed to how they've done it historically. It's just, man, it was so ripe for fraud, But the question is how much of that was fraud? But, when you look at the nation clearly is split. Right? It's clearly split. And how much fraud is there needed to sway the vote one way or the other? All I can say right now is if like, you listen to Trump at the end of the 2020 election, it's like, oh, everything was stolen. Well, if he believes that the elections can't be won because they're stolen by the left, then why is he running again? Right? He obviously believes in elections. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, to your point, I just don't think Trump lost by like 7 million votes. I don't think there was enough fraud to account for 7 million votes. Maybe 30,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000, but definitely not 7 million. So I don't know the claims of the stolen election. Just I never really bought into that. The night of the election, I was watching it, and when they announced Joe Biden the winner, I'm like, yeah, he's probably the winner. So I just never bought into that.
It's that they were the best descriptions I saw, and this is hashing things out that were now almost 4 years old, but they were showing anomalies in any given year, and they talked and anomalies. And yes, by the way, deliberate cheating and dishonesty is part of that, right? And these have become household like tongue-in-cheek jokes, right? The dead voting for some candidate or something like, or the double voting and all this other stuff. So cheating is part of that. And certainly I was watching reporting on cheating, and there was widespread cheating. There's no question about it. And they have plenty of evidence for it. And so, they're giving example after example after example, but that isn't actually, while there was widespread cheating, they're like, it wasn't that big. The big thing was implementing the mail-in vote, implementing electronic voting, implementing, all sorts of new rules and regulations that weren't tried and true. And so they talked about the irregularities. And again, if your irregularities are acceptable at 0.5% or 1.5%, and everybody raises an eyebrow when it gets up to 2 and 3%, then if you have irregularities at 12% and the vote is down to what's the spread of this difference on this, how much percentage wise, and yet the independent monitoring is saying, hey man, we're experiencing anywhere, depending on who you ask, anywhere from a 9 to 12% spread. Then you basically, the only way to handle this is to a new election. And so he lost Electoral College by 40,000 or whatever. 7 million was a popular vote, which is irrelevant. Okay. And I'm talking about even 7 million. How many votes were there? Does anybody have that? Like how many total votes cast? I don't have it either. Then I don't. Not only do I not have it, we're relying on other people, what other people are reporting at this point. Old hat. Point is that, the pundits were talking and no one knew who won. And this is like the next day. This is the next day and 5 days later and everything else that we're watching and it's being reported. And people are saying, look, the government is looking to us outside of the government and saying, you're the watchdogs. What are you saying? And these people were saying clearly, we can't tell you who won. And I don't think anybody can. And so what I was waiting to hear in those days, was, oh, okay, well, there's going to be, a new election. There's going to be a runoff election there. No, news media came out and said, well, this is who we want to win. And I went, okay. I'm not sure I believe in America as voting anymore. I mean, the reality is I say who I'm going to vote this way. I'm going to vote that way. I've voted all my life. I don't see the point anymore.
Well, and it's probably a sad, hard truth, and probably something that we embrace the older that we get. Thinking of things in the same vein as the late, great classic George Carlin. Man, it's garbage in and garbage out. Man, you're not. Things are so deep in shit right now. You're not going to vote your way out of it, no matter who gets in. The crap is only going to change a name. That's all that's going to happen.
What you got, Will? You've been quiet.
I've been listening to all the points, and I got to agree with a lot of them. In my job, and I've worked polls and whatnot, and seen when the people come out and vote and whatnot, and been in blue districts, red districts, working those things. I still would like to think that voting it still matters. I'm here in the Commonwealth. We have a little bit different laws than other places in the state. I still don't want to give up on the system. And when it comes to the debate and all, I didn't watch the debate live. I kind of was one of the guys that went over there and watched Trump and Tucker on X, or used to be Twitter, to see what he had to say. Everybody wanted to see what he had to say. Plus, I've told y'all before, I'm kind of leaning towards Elder, and I know there was he's claiming there was some shenanigans about him getting into the last debate. I did watch a lot of the reruns of the debate, and it's the first one. There was a lot of misstepping to things on guys up there, and some of them weren't doing a good job for very convincing for me. But I still think that it's going to come down. We still got to. I can't just give up and say that no matter what we do, we're not going to fucking win or anything like that. We still got to get out there. We still got to knock on doors. We got, like y'all said, I don't know who said it earlier, we got to do something about this early voting thing, because the Democrats got that shit locked down. We got to take advantage of it. Whether they did it kind of shiesty during COVID, which I'm a firm believer of them changing things because of the COVID. Some of them were done kind of shady and whatnot, but I don't want to be feeling like voting is still not the way to do it. Chad, I got to believe that too. You said, I think it was you that said, we can't vote up. We have our problems. We got to stop thinking that, who we vote in there is going to fix shit. All right. That's the federal level. We got to we got to fix that shit on the local level too.
No, Will, I think you're right. And I need to back, because Pistol Pete said that. Well, then they won two ways. Not only did they rig the election, but they didn't rig the election. I'm saying anomalies. Not only did they win that way, but then they really did discourage anybody who doesn't toe the line of the news media to not go in and vote. And I think for that reason, I'm very much intending on voting. I'm being honest. My sentiment is this doesn't really matter, but I still feel like a patriotic duty, and not even necessarily a patriotic duty. Certainly that too. But I think the bigger thing is, I think the bigger thing is just letting the news media know you're full of crap. Just absolute their power. They need to. I think mainstream news needs to be undone. I think to me it seems very unethical. They don't report news anymore, and so I wonder why they're there. But maybe they don't need to go away. Maybe they just need to wear all the bumper stickers of everybody that owns them because they're just a paid for mouthpiece. And so that would be fine. So what? They say this is the corporation that owns me. This is the special interest group that owns me. But anyway, I do agree that we do need to get out and vote. And I also agree, Will, I think you hit the nail on the head that politics is local, right? So deal with it in your own town first, then deal with it in your state, and then worry about the nation, because the nation's bought and paid for. I mean,
I think one of the we like to say that, and I like to say it too, in my job is, hey, local is important, but we can clearly see though after this last election some major changes that happened on the federal level that trickled all the way down to us. A lot of times we don't see that though. So I do think it's very, very important. And normally the thought process is, look, your local government's really what's got a hand in your pocket and make it, having you be able to live the way you want to live and whatnot. But I got to admit, though, I think we can all see too that this last election with the changes that were made at the top trickled down real goddamn quick. We're close to DC. I know Doc's real close, so we see it a little sooner, but I can't see anywhere in this great nation that hasn't seen some huge freaking changes since the last election. And yeah,
I've got an example of that trickle down. I want to circle back to that, but I want to kick it over to Randall because he just joined us. Randall from Grunt Proof, man, welcome aboard. Welcome to the fight. What you got?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for letting me in. I missed probably the last 5 minutes, so might step on my dick a little bit here, but I think if this country was run the way it should be, the president shouldn't be that important at all. Like I just caught the last little bit about like local politics. That's how it should be. You could see some examples of that during COVID. The media had everybody believing everybody followed this COVID bullshit, but in the free states, most people didn't give a fuck. A lot of governors, after 2 months, they realized, like my home state, they're like, all right, we're not doing this shit. As far as the debates, I didn't watch it because I can't stand these, time limits they give these idiots to regurgitate whatever talking points they were given. But I do like to listen to the long format interviews. I think it'd be awesome if these debates were all these people have to go on a popular show and talk about their policies for like 2 hours. People think the average American can't handle that, but these long form podcasts getting super popular disproves that, but half of these morons, they couldn't talk about their policies outside of those 2-minute sound bites. But I will say though, since you guys did it in the beginning, I was thinking Trump was, if we have to put a lot of investment in the president, like we're at that point where they are important now, I would want the person that is going to have the courage to step back and say, all right, I'm going to take over, but I'm going to limit the executive. That's what we need. The executive has way too much power, which is why people care so much. So I was thinking that guy was Trump. He made a lot of stupid mistakes when he was in, but this guy Vivek, I've heard him do a couple interviews lately, and Trump, he did an interview or a speech. I think it was with the Moms for Liberty, and that was the first time I heard Trump talk about not coming in and smashing all these policies and creating bullshit, but actually pulling stuff back, cutting the federal government budgets and all departments and everything. But this Vivek guy, he has a lot of the same ideas, but he's actually laid out how exactly he would do it. And it essentially came down to, a great majority of the federal government being gone. And I heard that and I'm like, that's fucking awesome. We need I've talked about it before doing live stuff. Like, if 99% of the federal government's budget was gone, I would be fucking happy. And then we'll add from there.
Yeah, so I listened to you sent me that interview he did with on the Sean Ryan show, and I was listening to that, and he says a lot of great stuff. But I can't help but wonder, but like, where's this dude been? You know what I'm saying? Like, he just popped up. It seems like, to me, anyways, popped up out of nowhere, and he's saying all the right stuff. But it's like, what the fuck has he been doing? Like, where's he been? Where was he at during the last midterm? So that's my reservation, right? I'm not going to necessarily follow the leader that shows up, the day before the battle and says all the right things, but you've never seen that dude. You never heard of that dude. You don't know how he's going to perform in combat. You know what I'm saying? So.
Oh yeah. Well, then if we want veterans, we need Chris Christie for sure.
No, you're being ridiculous right now.
I gotta ask. I saw he was running, and I'm like, who the fuck is voting for this guy? Oh,
Seriously.
Idiots from New Jersey who are okay with living in that cesspool.
Multiple
That's about
of those
it.
people on that debate stage the other night. It's just like, why are they even up there? So.
Yeah, a lot of them had to get just by name alone. I mean, for the minimum things that you have to get on that debate. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why, Chris?
Well, I think some of these guys are actually running for the VP slot.
Oh, yeah.
I think they understand they don't have a chance of getting the nomination. So next best thing is the VP spot. So.
Well, clearly it's been proven that you could be the last person in a fucking debate and get on the fucking ticket as the VP and get elected in there. So.
Yeah, amen, brother.
Joe.
Yo, what's up, fellas?
It's your time, brother. Jump in.
What's going on? What are you guys talking about?
Oh, shit. You can't join into the chat and say that.
Sex robots.
What's your no, we haven't got to that part yet. Presidential sex robots. That's to be discussed. That's on the list.
Easy.
Yeah, so what's your outlook at the presidential race? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, dude. I think that guy Vivek, I think he's like, I don't know, bro. He says like too many things I want to hear, and I don't like that. I still like Trump just because I hate him so much. That's all I got. I mean, I don't know. I think, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I think DeSantis is, I mean, he's like a cool guy, but I still think that he's better off in staying in Florida. And Pence creeps me out, and Nikki Haley's, I don't know, she freaks me out too. That's about it.
I wish Kristi Noem was on that stage. Grump Proof's all about her, and after seeing some of the commercials she's put out in her own state, gosh, talk about a gorgeous woman, man.
Look at her leadership during the COVID shit. She said from the very beginning, absolutely not. The news went after her hardcore until they saw, she dropped a whole bunch of taxes and everything. And they were the only state during the pandemic to see a GDP increase. It was like 45%. But then the news, they quit bashing her because all her policies worked, and ignoring this flu virus worked out for them. Not ignoring it, but not shutting the whole goddamn state down. But so talking about DeSantis, this is where if the country was run how it should be, I agree. That's what we need. We need strong fucking governors. Because that's what it's all about. The governors, like, if Californians want to live like Californians, fine. I don't give a shit. But don't import it to the federal level where they're all just grabbing more power and trying to force that same way of living onto every other state.
Okay, so here's where I'm gonna jump in. This was gonna be my example earlier about the trickle down. Okay, so our governor, Greg Abbott here in Texas, right? We're getting hammered with illegal immigration. So what does he do? He takes freaking buoys, big ass giant buoys, puts them in the freaking river, right, to prevent them from crossing. They're working, and what does the Biden administration do? They're suing us now. All right, so there's an example of top down. Not allowing Texas to govern itself, essentially, is how I'm looking at it.
Well, so why? I mean, it only takes one governor with the courage to say, tell the federal government to suck a bag of dicks. And what are they going to do? Is the federal government going to declare war on states? If Abbott does it, South Dakota follows, Florida follows, Mississippi, all these great states will follow. And we don't have to do like a civil war secession. It's just like, no, we're not participating. We're not doing
I do think DeSantis is pretty good at that. Like just telling them, saying like, no, this is my state. I'm going to govern my state. I do like what he stands for. I just rubs me the wrong way. He kind of reminds me of Jeb Bush a little bit when he's debating, but as a governor, I'm sure he's doing a great job. And I do like how he tells, the federal government to go pack sand sometimes, which is good.
I think
that guy doesn't have, he's out of nowhere. I have no clue who he is or what he does. I do know what they tell me, but I don't know if that's true. So
I think Stoker hit the nail on the head, and he didn't even say a word. Give them the sign again. What you said, the reason why they're not coming out against the federal government.
They don't have the balls, man. They want that federal money.
That federal money, that is a huge thing to a lot of freaking states out there that, don't have the amount of resources and things that some of the other states do. And it's just that is the biggest thing. I think there's a whole lot. You always see the map of the country, especially during election time, and you see the sea of red that's always sweeping across the nation and the big pockets of the blue. And you're like, how the hell is it even a question? But a lot of them states in the federal government are like, look, we're going to take your money. We're going to take all your federal funds, and that's how you get your highways. That's how you get your good schools and your guard and things like that. And they're like, well, fuck, we cannot freaking have a prosperous state here without that Fed money. And that's what I think scares a lot of states from, they talk that good game, but when it comes down to it, they have to say, you know what, I'm just going to have to turn the other cheek sometimes because we got to get that federal money.
Unless they make their own money, kind of like Florida does or California does or New York does, where
they don't make enough.
Well, I mean,
the nanny state is strong.
He still kind of does. Yeah, he still kind of doesn't really care too much about what.
I've got an example of states telling the federal government to fuck off, and I don't agree with this. I hate marijuana. It drives me insane. The odor, and when I go to Vegas, you can't walk down the street without getting a headache when I go there. Right. But anyways, that aside, my personal feelings aside, many states have just said to the federal government, go fuck yourself. This isn't going to be legal in our state. This is going to be legal in our state. And the federal government did nothing. Right. And it just exploded right across the nation. There's so many states now where it's federally illegal, but it's legal in that state. And, it is what it is. So why can't they do that? Why can't they do that with guns and border policy? Just go tell them to fuck themselves and carry on.
I think a lot of those states that did that were blue states to start with, though, in the beginning. So they haven't been going after them. I know when the Commonwealth of Virginia switched their laws back 2 years ago, we had a Democrat in the House, in the governor's house, and I think that's a big thing. So right now they're not. If you had a Republican in there, it may be a little bit different. They may be saying, "Hey, wait, motherfuckers, it's still illegal," and then have a bigger discussion. But I think when it comes to that, I think it always depends who's in there and if they're going to be, chewing at the bit or on their people's asses. And they're, for example, the DOJ and all, they always seem to be fucking suing freaking Florida and freaking damn Texas for everything. And I know us who kind of pay attention or maybe leaning one way or the other, and we're like, come on, it's fucking working. Why is this even a problem? Well, it's against their freaking optics of what they want. If the shit, again, if it's working, why are we freaking trying to stop it? Well, because our policy is we want every swinging dick to come across, and I think they said, I heard Elon was getting freaking sued because he's not hiring illegals and freaking non-citizens and shit. And I was like, wait, there was a time where you didn't do that, but it doesn't fit the narrative nowadays.
Yeah, there's a 10th Amendment there for a reason, and it's a pretty important one that a lot of folks ultimately don't give two shits about. Listen to the debate. One of everybody's talking point is, I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. Well, if any of these states, especially where these governors are at, believed that, then they would just tell the DOE or Department of Education to fuck off. But they don't have the balls to do it. And when it comes to other things, you can't abide by the 10th Amendment only when it's convenient. To Brent's case, when it comes to weed and shit, if states want to have fucking weed running all over the place, well, we don't need a federal ban on that shit, because that has nothing to do with the federal government. So I agree with something that my pal over in the next to me, or wherever he's at over there, saying, fucking just need to reduce the size of the government. All these $3 agencies that have absolutely no business doing what they're doing, get rid of them. Fuck them.
Right. And I haven't listened to all these candidates. Like I went and looked up a list earlier. I don't know a lot of these candidates, but Trump and this Vivek guy, they're the only guys I've heard of limiting power. I love DeSantis. I love how he's governed. He did shut Florida down a little bit, and they did have some silliness down there, but he's all, with the banning the transgender stuff, the CRT, the whatever the fuck. Yeah, there's all kinds of shit he's proactively legislating against, and we need less legislation. Banning shit and setting legislation is all fun and games while you're in charge. That's how we got the Patriot Act. That's how they're fucking coming after us today. I want less government. Just go away.
Well, we got to talk about the big elephant in the room too, because I know a lot of us are on the, looking for that Trump train. It's already taking steam. I mean, like I said, he had 150 million views on damn Twitter or X compared to 13 for the debate. But I mean, goddamn, he's got a lot of court cases coming up, and some of them are right in the goddamn right when things are rolling down real quick. I think we just had a ruling today that said it was going to be in March of 2024.
Right before Tuesday.
Yeah, so I mean, they're doing everything they can to keep them out of the limelight. But then again, they played their hand last time by some guy who never came outside was able to win the election too. So I don't know if they're freaking betting on that.
So this is what's crazy, because remember when we did that Civil War stream like a year ago or so? Like not a single one of us said, at least from what I can remember, I don't think anybody said that they think a civil war will happen, right? But watching how things are unfolding now, where you literally have prosecutors in these blue states and some red states, right, are going after, but they're all lefty liberal prosecutors going after a former president for alleged, charges from 2 years ago, right? And they're timing everything, right? They waited and are timing everything to try to interfere with his election bid. I mean, it's just unbelievable. That's banana republic shit. And it's like, this is the United States of America. And it's blowing my mind that this is, unraveling right now, because it's like, you would never think that this type of stuff would happen in our country. And it's like, if this is what's going to end up, dude, we are a lot closer to armed conflict than I would ever imagine.
But certainly if it comes down to Biden and Trump, whoever wins, the other side is going to lose their fucking minds. Like epically. Will lose their fucking minds.
Yeah.
And they're only worried about, I believe, the short game too. Let's say, if they lose if they get found guilty, he gets found guilty or anything, and they went on appeal. As long as they fucked up the election, that's all they're really worried about, I believe.
Can you guys hear my air conditioner? Should I turn it off? Do you hear it? No.
You good?
Doc, did you go over your time limit or something, or what's going on? Did he go over his time?
No, I'm listening. I mean, I think there's some really good points being made here. The question that I hear coming up is what invigorates your base, your political base. And it has me wondering, many of the comments here tonight how different the landscape might have looked had Trump won. Hear me out. If you had a strong Republican president, how many of these Republican or non-Democrat, governors really would have stepped up to bat as they have, right? It seems to me that invigorating your base it's hard for me to imagine something better than an inept communist struggling from dementia, late stages of dementia. They're just a silly, goofy team who we have at the head of the boat right now. And so, on one hand, I think, good grief, that's a recipe for disaster, but we've stared down the barrel of World War III, and we seem to have sidestepped it, at least for the moment we have. And we did that with the goofy duo. I'm not giving them any credit. I'm not sure that they could find Ukraine on a map, right? I'm not sure they know what's going on in Ukraine or anywhere else in the world. I don't think that they're informed well enough. And one of them truly is suffering a medical end of life sort of situation, which I'm not gloating over. That's not a cool thing, but it is who the Democrats put up in charge. And so I wonder, okay, guys, come on. You saw Roe v. Wade overturned. You've seen some incredible stuff coming out of affirmative action is in effect died, right? You've seen some really pro Second Amendment decisions coming out of the Supreme Court. Would any of these happen if we had a strong Republican presidency right now? I don't know. And I don't know if we had a strong Republican presidency, I mean, truly a strong, would we have been in World War III at this point? So there's some real questions coming out here that maybe it's better that the non-communists truly are at the state level. And I hear what you're saying, Brent. Like you're saying there's this potential for an armed, revolution, but I don't think so. I think Americans are too fat, dumb, happy, lazy. But I think what you have is an armed apathy. And so if the state can keep you happy enough, just let the balkanization happen. No? Am I wrong on that one?
No, it's funny how history repeats itself. I mean, the same thing happened to the Roman Empire. So, but you made the point I made in the beginning. It's dangerous party versus stupid party, and the Democrats know how to play politics. Brent, you basically highlighted this when you addressed the timing of these court cases against Trump. They know what they're doing. We don't have a clue what we're doing, it seems like. These people are dangerous. But I want to traverse a little bit. We've talked about the Republican side, but what about the other side? Biden is dangerous simply because we're one heart attack away from President Harris. And that's a freaking nightmare on its own. My biggest fear, I think, is Gavin Newsom running. I think we've all heard the horror stories coming out of the gulag known as California during COVID. So what are you guys' thoughts on the other side?
Newsom would win. I bet if it came down to Newsom versus Trump, Newsom would win for the same reason Trump lost this last time. The media controls how people vote. Like you guys were talking about the election being stolen. I also agree with Chad that it wasn't enough of a loss to be rigged, but it was stolen through the media. Remember, this is when I was booted from Facebook. This was the great purge of any kind of different thought online, and the media, Fox was turning against Trump. Like there was zero accurate media. So Newsom is he's like Trudeau, man, and enough of the people with money like him.
Yeah, I don't think my intuition tells me that the powers that be in the DNC don't want Biden for a second go. I also don't think that they want Kamala at all, half a go or no go. But I could see maybe something, this is fucking call it conspiracy theory, whatever, right? But if Biden had to step down for medical reasons just before the elections got going, we've already seen Gavin going to the White House. We've already seen him starting to play national politics. He's already kind of gearing up to speed, even though there's nothing official about it. And I think that the powers that be in the DNC would be fine with Kamala, running the show for a few months as Gavin was getting out into the polls, because I think that's who they want.
And if you look at what he's doing on Twitter, he's totally setting himself up for that. He went after my governor, man, in Mississippi, and they were talking about debating each other. I'm like, dude, my governor will beat your ass in a fucking fist fight, man.
That's what we need. Fucking fist fights.
Yeah, dueling.
And they're scared to death of Kennedy getting in there too, because you think they are all worried about Trump locking dudes up. Don't think that Kennedy ain't got a lot of axes to grind too. Although he's not said anything like that, but I noticed that he's been out there trying to speak and be heard and get his voice and his message out there. And they're trying to do. And we're talking about the powers that be in the big mainstream media, trying to do everything they can to just omit that guy. He's not even over there, although he's polling real good to try to run against them, but they're not going to. They're just going to try to take the incumbent unless he dies.
Can't have somebody in if you can't control them, and they can't control RFK Jr.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because I've heard from people that I know vote Republican that they have tuned into him, and he's not your typical Democrat. So, and I know Tucker Carlson has had him on the show several times, and I don't want to name names, but I had somebody, text me recently that's been on this live stream before, like, "Hey man, have you checked him out at all?" And I'm like, dude, no, I'm not fucking. You don't pass the litmus test if you have a D in front of your name, period. But yeah, but I mean, obviously he's saying stuff that is appealing to somebody. So
I checked him out a little bit. It means nothing because of probably the reasons that you just stated, but obviously what he says about the pharmaceutical companies, which is probably why he won't win. But he was talking about they were asking him about the gun issue with school shootings and stuff like that. And he was saying, I guess because his thing must be health related, that's kind of probably what he's running on. He's saying, oh, it's got nothing to do with guns, blah, 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 but they didn't like that. So if he wants to go any further, he's probably going to have to start towing the line when it comes to guns. But I think truly he might not be like your run-of-the-mill Democrat. I mean, I literally can't vote for him, but I don't think I would either. But I'm just saying, I think he's probably a decent guy, but if he wants to get any further, he's going to have to start towing the line. So
it's worth.
Go ahead, Brent.
I was just going to say it's worth noting. One of the interviews I saw with him, he said that he would serve as Trump's VP if Trump got elected, but he would not serve as Biden's VP. So I mean that says something right there too, though.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And Doc, I think you hit something on the head pretty well, talking about unification within a party. And as far as I can tell, I think that on some level the Democrats want Trump to be on the number one ticket. I think they really want that because I think that they can beat him. But I also think that they're doing everything that they're doing right now in the court system, and we see the result and the impact. It is completely discombobulated the Republican Party. If you look at a pro-Trumpers Twitter feed or any other feed, they will 100% talk smack against anybody who might be pro-DeSantis, like almost death threat style. You fucking traitors, you this, you this, you this. But when it comes into the future, like all of these guys who hate one guy on the Republican side or hate the other, I think, Brent, you said this earlier, like whoever gets to that top, that's who's going to end up getting the vote. Like we can have family fights all day long, and I don't think the Democrats get this. You can have family fights all day long, but whoever ends up with that as the nominee is going to get every Republican vote that's out there.
Well, we're talking about this as if there will be an election. You never know. We got over a year. Plenty of emergencies could come up.
Did you guys already talk about COVID or what?
What's that?
What?
They're teasing it again.
Oh, it's already starting up, so they're already getting the COVID scare
Yeah,
out
no,
there.
I don't know if maybe where you guys
pull
live,
that
it's
into
not,
freaking-
it's not coming
I don't
out.
know what the rules are for talking about the vid, but
Oh,
you know, you can see some of the writing on the wall. They're already starting to get, hey, there's a few of these small spots that are already starting to bring back mask mandates and things of that nature, and you're just like, come on, it worked once. I don't think the populace will fall for it or be naive. I mean, there was a lot of people back then that thought they were going to turn into the fucking Walking Dead and start eating dudes, but I think we've already come out to realize that, you know, yeah, it's bad. It happens. It's killed some people. I mean, don't get me wrong, and especially if you have underlying conditions or you got elderly parents and grandparents and all, that is a huge risk for them to break them down. But they're already starting to, you know, set the tone to say, hey, oh, COVID's here. So guess what, everybody? We got to start doing the same shit we did, you know, at that time. It'll be 3.5 years ago, and nobody can go out and vote no more and shit and do this because it worked once, goddamn it, maybe, you know, depending on what you believe.
That's how you keep Biden back down in the basement.
Yeah,
But people will fall for it. We fall for it all the time. Every decade or two, there's some emergency or crisis where Americans fucking fall for it. Like, I think we were all legitimately freaked out in March 2020, you know, for a little bit. You know, I was picturing like, shit, it's gonna be like the Black Death, man. We're gonna be wheeling people out in wheelbarrows. And then they started showing the death counter up there on the news, along with those risk categories. And it's like, all right, most people got it, but a lot of people fell for it. So the next time they're going to be like, no, we were wrong. This is the real strain. We're really all going to die this time. And fucking people will be running out there stocking up on toilet paper and noodles again. You know, we fall for it every fucking time, guys. Like you guys talked about the nanny state with the states. They cannot be cut off from Big Daddy federal government. Like we cannot have the courage to keep our freedom. It's been lost. All we need is some bad news to freak us out. We're like, all right, somebody come save us, please. And also with the nanny state, look at these things, these weird events happening, you know, train wrecks, chemical spills, all this shit. Maui. The biggest complaints I see on social media is that Biden is not coming in there to save them. And it's like, what the fuck? You want limited government, but now you're bitching because the federal government won't come save your ass in an emergency. How the fuck does that work?
well, if they could do one thing, you know, maybe it would be that. But oh, you know, Doc, can you explain something to me? Did you guys watch the GOP debate? Oh, all right. Well, they were all like basically like arguing over who would support Israel and Ukraine more. And I'm just curious because I don't really understand why. Why is it important that that's like something that like they'd run on about like what level of support you'd give to Israel and what level of support you'd give to like Ukraine, with like the fact is that there will be given, you know, support of some kind.
It's a question of, are you more of a hawk than me? That's what it comes down to. And those are the go-to, Israel is the go-to litmus when we don't have a war that we're involved in. Because no one talked about that when, the global war on terror was going on. No one talked about that. But if you go back to the, 90s and the 80s and the 70s, when there wasn't a convenient war going on, well, then that's what they said. I'm more of a hawk than you are. I'm big on the military and I'm proud to be an American and all this stuff. So this is what they say because we don't have a war we're involved in. So let's talk about other people's wars. Let's talk about Ukraine. Let's talk about, how pro-Israel are you? What this means is, are you willing to support ongoing military actions that, favor America? And are you willing to commit military resources to it? It's a litmus test for how hawk are you.
Gotcha.
Whatever one party is for, you got to be against it. And that's where some of that comes from too. Like the only reason that some of these guys are against Ukraine is because the Democrats and that whole machine is for Ukraine and sending billions and billions of dollars over there. So we must be against it. And same thing would be for Israel, because some of that ties back into the history that Doc is talking about. I mean, that story goes back a long time and how that's being built up. But we got a
Tulsi Gabbard talked about that a lot, towing the party line.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even talk across the table. She was the last sane person I thought came out of Hawaii.
And plus, they already know exactly where Trump stands on the two issues too. So he's big for Israel, and he's already said that if he was in there, he'd stop that. Well, he'd stop the war in Ukraine just like that. So that's kind of the talking point too. Without going against him because he's not standing on the stage, I think that was their way of saying, hey, we either agree with them or we're not for them or what have you. And whether they say it's to help the citizens of Ukraine fight the communists and stop the Russians, or if they're out there trying to keep fucking Hunter and Joe from going, their business getting found out, that was a big thing too, I believe.
I deal with that with the European news and their collective thought. I don't know if you guys know, but international news is way worse than ours, especially in Europe. Fox is garbage, I think, but at least we have an alternative. In Europe, it's all left, 100% left. There's not one good thing ever mentioned about Trump or anything objective at all. But with the Ukraine stuff, I still hear this shit. Oh, well, if Trump was in, it would be even worse. And I'm like, well, really? Because you guys made fun of him for talking to the enemies and negotiating and trying to, I mean, you guys know, you got to talk to your enemies and negotiate and work through stuff. We don't have to start nuking each other, but Reagan, he was very hard on adversaries and very big on being strong without going to war, and it worked. I mean, if you got two extreme labeled as crazy people, what do you want? What we have now dealing with this mess, or the guy that might be called crazier than Putin? I'd rather have him, because I know he's gonna go fuck people up if he has to, instead of just sending money out there to fucking the wind.
And that's like even with Reagan, I watch old Reagan clips all the time just because I love how he talks. But if we're honest with ourselves, if you look at the size of the government in 1980 to the size of the government in 1988, it set the precedent for everything that's happened since then, right, wrong, or indifferent. We just got to be careful to understand the consequences of the actions. And I agree, like your vote still matters, right? And you can't give up on that. You got to get out and you got to talk to your neighbors and everything else. Even if the dude who gets in is a big government right-wing guy, I would rather have that than the other guy,
So do you guys have a guy that you feel represents you right now, or?
Fuck no. They're all big government guys.
That's a good point. So I guess how about we go around a horn and just, address who you're thinking about. So me, I would love for Larry Elder to get more spotlight, man. I listened to him for years on talk radio. He's a fantastic guy.
Is he running?
Yeah, he's running. They wouldn't even let him in the freaking debate, man. They pulled some shenanigans and they're like, yeah, no, you don't qualify because of XYZ. So they wouldn't let him up there. But yet you have some of these other clowns that, like freaking having a brain fart with the fat guy.
Chris Christie.
Yes, Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme.
It's
Who
right.
voted for that guy?
Yeah, I don't like that guy too much.
Yeah, so I am a big Larry Elder fan. I'd like to see him more get more spotlight. So, but I just don't think he has a chance. So, with that, I'd like to see more out of DeSantis, but he hasn't performed yet. So he's done a lot of great things in Florida. I don't think on the level of like Kristi Noem, but she's not running. So I don't know, man. I'm still open. But watching a Republican debate the other night, I'm like, I don't think anybody on that stage like represents me. Like none of them talked about guns, and I don't think there's any candidate with a background that has said anything that's pro, Second Amendment. So.
Yeah, the only one on that stage that really resonated with Stoker was Governor Burgum. The only guy who pulled a pocket copy of the Constitution out of his coat pocket and said, here's why I can't support, in that particular case, a nationwide ban on abortion because of what the 10th Amendment says. And because I think his background is amazing, but like a lot of other folks, unfortunately, he didn't stand a chance.
I got to agree with a little bit on Brent too. I've been listening to Larry for many years, and I seen when he ran for the recall and whatnot, and he's been preaching the same things about his big points and for the black community, things of that nature for years. And he's got a lot of points that agree with what Trump did too. So there's that. I think that I have to agree with Brent. I don't think he will ever be able to top right now Trump's popularity, but. I mean, if you're playing the game to win, you could do Larry trying to get on. Like you said, those guys are fighting for the VP spot. And you listen to Larry Elder over the years. And like I said, a lot of his points have not changed on his big main issues. I wish we could see more of him. Hopefully he'll get on the stage on the next debate. But if we had to pick, it's so hard right now to think about Trump unless they somehow get him out there, get him completely off the ticket with some convictions or something like that. But Larry Elder right now is mine. If he's not on there, then it's going to be Trump.
Great photo.
Is awesome. And you're right. And if Trump makes it, his vice president choice or selection could not be more important because he can only get back in for 4 more years. So
Sure.
your entire hope of continuing a steady state for another 4 or 8 years is going to be absolutely dependent on who that vice president pick is. Is he somebody who could have won or can win in 4 years?
And I think he'll definitely try to pick somebody, whoever it is, that's going to be able to take the reins if he needed to or something, and not be a goddamn puppet or a affirmative action pick or something like that. They're going to pick the person on the substance. And from debate stage, yeah, there's some guys on there that don't need to be on there, but I mean, there was still 3, 4, 5 guys that would. It's maybe not their time this election, but have aspirations. But I mean, we wouldn't be talking about, goddamn, what happens if Joe goes off into the freaking sunset? Then we get Kamala, and oh Lord, even though you would have somebody there that would be respectable and be able to do the job. And I think that's what he would pick, because let's say if Trump gets the ticket, he's not dumb. He knows how to pick people around him to do the job well.
Where you at, Chad?
I guess I'll throw my 2 cents in there. As I said in the intro, I'm not for anybody. I'm just anti the other guy, anti-Democrat Party. Larry Elder would be nice. I think that's a long shot. DeSantis, I think, has some personality problems that are going to be hard to overcome. I like a lot of what he's done in Florida. Vivek, I think he's really trying too hard to be like Trump. He's playing the whole I'm an outsider, I'm not a politician card, I'm an entrepreneur, I've got my own money. So he's trying to follow it. He even talks like Trump too in some ways. So and he's wishy-washy on a few things. He's said some things and then reversed it in interviews and stuff like that. But man, I just don't know about this election. I look at these people and I ask who can win, and I just don't see anybody who can. I mean, why is Pence up there? Why is Asa Hutchinson up there? I mean, why? So I'm very pessimistic about this upcoming election.
Randall?
Yeah, well, I didn't know Larry Elder was in, but he would definitely be my top pick. He's when they tried the recall in California, he would have won. If the recall would have passed, he would have won. But yeah, he would be my top pick. I just with this Vivek guy, I like you said, he's kind of come out of nowhere. And we got to remember, whatever you guys saw on these debates, I don't think that means anything. So I don't know what how anybody performed on that, but I've listened to probably 3 hours worth of the guy, and I'm pretty happy. I agree with Chad though. He could be copying Trump, or it could just be like-minded opinions. But either way, I want to see the Secretary of Treasury being the guy from OpenTheBooks.org, Adam Andrzejewski, I think. If you guys haven't seen The Depth of the Swamp with him, his speech, if we had a president that wanted to limit the federal powers of the government and had this guy auditing our own government, it would be beautiful.
Stoker.
Oh, same as who's out there. Governor Burgum is the only one that was on that platform. Anyways, I mean, I like Elder. Like, I like Scott. Like, he's just a nice, humble boy. Doesn't stand a chance in hell. I think Vivek is coming across like he wants to be the VP. That's the vibe I get from him.
Doc.
Right now, if I had to vote, I'd say it's a DeSantis Elder or Elder DeSantis. I mean, DeSantis does bring certain things. He's got the executive experience being the governor of Florida, and I think he's a guy that can get things done. Elder's your rationale. I guess it's your base, right? It's the person who's going to say, okay, this is the moral, ethical way to go. I guess is what I'm saying. So that would be a kind of a cool combination. Would be a Elder DeSantis combination. That said, so I wanted to answer that because you've asked who would we vote, out of the Republican Party. But the reality is that I'm not a Republican, and so I would like to see the Bull Moose Party brought back. And I know who I think should bring back the Bull Moose Party. I think it should be Elon Musk, and his VP should be Jordan Peterson.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I want someone to come back and win the American culture of the politic, right?
Yeah,
like
that's pretty good.
That's what I want. Someone to come back, and we need a Elon Musk and Jordan Peterson to guide us back to. I don't even give a damn whether they won presidency. Just to have the Bull Moose Party back with those two at the head of it, I would probably ignore the rest of the United States of America and just do what they say. Anyway, I say this half joking, but half not.
Joe.
Yeah, I don't. Represents me is represents my people of my generation that think kind of like we're talking about. I'd say that Vivek guy, but that's what worries me is because I don't know, maybe my mind is broken and I'm too conspiratorial now, or my generation is. It just seems like if I wanted to pull all of the people, Vivek said he wanted to abolish the FBI. So if I wanted to pull all the crazy people from Trump and split the vote somehow, and maybe I don't know, I would run somebody like Vivek, because how's he possibly going to win an election saying he's going to abolish the FBI?
Ooh, so you're saying he's only in there to split the Trump vote? Is that what you're?
I don't know, but like I said, see, this is my problem. I think I'm ruined. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I should even be allowed to vote. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I think my question is do you think? So my question was, do you think anyone represents you? Do I think anyone represents me? What Vivek says I think that would represent me. But the next question I'd ask is, do you think any of those people would win an election against whomever the Democrats would run? And then it's
depends on the Democrat.
Okay, so Biden, I don't know if do you think you're going to run Biden again? Does anybody think that they're going to?
Crazier shit has happened, man.
Okay. and then say Gavin Newsom.
I would say that because you see all these charges against Trump coming down, they're firing all barrels, and that is only because Biden needs all the help he can get. So that's my thinking. I'm thinking they're trying everything. They're going to try COVID, 2.0. They're doing the law. They're taking the law route. They're pulling everything out of their ass to try to help this man across the finish line.
I don't see how. I mean, then again, we said this 3 years ago, but with the way things have gone with California and the fucking shithole that it seems to be, and I know some of you guys have been out to California very more recently and have seen it with your own eyes. Yeah, Newsom, he's young and he's intelligent and he's good looking and he's California. But I mean, if you put the record of freaking California up against there, I just don't understand. I don't see how anybody would go for it. And I think that with the way the country has gone in the last couple of years, I think a lot of those people that were saying, you know what, I don't want to vote for Trump just because he's an asshole or he likes to grab bitches by the pussy or something. I'm not going to do that. Now that they've seen how bad things have gotten and can see how it's going downhill, that I think that I think he might, even if it's not him, I think the Republican Party is going to get a lot more votes than they did last time, because people can actually see, look, there is consequences to some of your decisions. And now that there's, the general public is seeing, dirty politics being played with the court systems. And there's been polls out there that have went on both sides to all over the country. Do you think it's political? Do you think these things against Trump? And people are waking up going, yeah, it is kind of dirty pulling shit. So, it could just be more people this time, is whoever's on the ticket of that with that R next to them may be able to get on there.
Well, if you can find a way, if the RNC, because the RNC doesn't want Trump, right? Because they can't control him. If they can find a way to pull him from the ticket, whether it's through all the recent activities or whatever, and maybe it still enables him to run as an independent. It's something else the Democrats could be thinking. If we can just split the Republican vote, it's a win. No, even Gavin Newsom could win.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Trump should just run as a Democrat. I don't know why.
Yeah, that would be shitty if he ran as an independent and split the vote. That'd be the worst fucking thing ever. And I would hope that people in his corner would say, under no circumstances do that. And to go against somebody that's on that stage right now that doesn't get the Republican nomination, if you want to win and you want to change things, that right now is not the time for that third party. And I know, we don't want just two-party politicking, but I think right now that would be a freaking terrible thing. What say you, Doc?
I think it would be a terrible thing for the Republican Party, for any other kind of the second party. That said, don't count Elon Musk and Dr. Peterson out yet, man. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I don't care if they win. I just want some sanity here. I want our soul back. And I don't feel like okay, so here's the thing. I've said it before. When Trump came out and said, I'm going to run for president, I thought this was the greatest troll ever. I thought, man, this guy is expert level trolling. And then he won the primary, and I was just dumbfounded. I was like, wait, hold on. This is real? I couldn't believe it. I was sure it was all a big prank. And so I told you already, I didn't vote for him either time. But the other thing is, I think that it started my downward spiral on distrusting institution, because the world did not come to the end. The United States did not implode and burn to the ground when Trump took over. In fact, it pains me greatly to say that Trump actually had some success as the president of the United States, and more than just one. I mean, first off, he put good people in the Supreme Court. We're seeing the dividends of that now. Secondly, he went to probably the most annoying yet insignificant little bastard, and that is, North Korea. And he pulled the dog chain on that little yapper and got him to shut the hell up. Then he turned to, Xi Jinping, and he actually brought, at least temporarily, he brought China under the wing. And so I thought, good Lord, This guy, I mean, he went and he read NATO, the Riot Act, and they hated him for it. Well, by God, who's the fool now? Everything he said to them turned out to be true. So, and now they're saying, "Wow, okay, I guess he was right." This whole thing in Ukraine proves that Trump was right. So, look, as frustrating as I found Trump as a president, he had his win. But I think right now he's divisive for the Republicans. I think he's a divisive figure for the Republicans, more so than the Democrats. And so I wish he would just either go back to his home base. Someone already said he should just run as a Democrat. Well, he is a New York City Democrat. Which if let me define that, it's many different things. But to call someone a New York City Democrat says, they're really kind of liberal, except when it comes to money. And anything, and that includes national defense and anything else. Anything that's going to protect their money, they get real conservative real quick. Okay. And so that's who we're dealing with when we're dealing with Trump, a New York City Democrat who then ran on the Republican ticket, which is one more reason I thought it was all a great big troll. Anyway, now he's very, very divisive. And so with him running, and I don't get why he is. Isn't he like 106, this October or something? I mean, the dude is old. And he won't make it through another term. So I hope he does choose and very carefully he chooses his vice president. So I don't know. I see it as a lot of bad, Brent. I see it as a whole lot of bad. There's an enormous lack of faith in institutions. You see this with plummeting numbers on campus. Or you see, not just males not showing up, but millions upon millions. What was the last? I don't know this year, but I think last year it was something like 12 or 15 million less students registered for college. Okay. And overwhelmingly men, 70% men. But that's to say a whole lot of women said, "Nah, I'm not going to college. I don't have faith in it anymore. What's its relevancy?" You see less and less people joining the military. So when we look at, Joe's generation, there's a real apathy and a real distrust in institutions. And, so I jokingly say, bring on Dr. Peterson and Elon Musk. And that's because these are voices, I think, that are trusted right now. And we need that.
That's kind of what I was getting at, where I was saying, like, I feel like I'm like a little fucked up, is because it's like, I feel like, I don't know, like, you guys have seen more elections than I have, obviously. But it just, like, nothing makes sense to me anymore. Like, the things that they say, the things they're talking about, like the fighting over bullshit, and like I don't feel like there's like you said, like the soul of the country or whatever. I just don't feel like the actual thing that's important about like representing us as Americans. I just feel like it's just like checklist against checklist, and we're just like comparing, fucking sending, just like who's getting what money where, you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't feel like anything represents me really, and I'm just kind of like voting out of like, not out of spite, but voting out of like, let's see what happens. You know what I mean? And I don't want to vote like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I'm at, and a lot of people my age are kind of at that point too, and it's not a good feeling. And like it's like you said, like a distrust, and I don't want to feel distrust, but it's just like who's earning trust now? You know what I mean? Who's doing anything to earn trust of anybody? You know?
Well, okay, so then let's listen to some of the many messages of Elon Musk when he was asked.
Oh no, I agree with you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, when he was asked about the border, he said you got to get your border in check. You got to have immigration in check. And he didn't say keep it steady or decrease it. He kind of might have sounded like he was saying increase your immigration, but he was saying keep it in check because this is a stress on our resources, right? Then he, in that same breath, yes, I know. I'm talking about a Canadian and a South American to come into America and tell us how great we are and unite us again. And you think I'm joking? I'm not joking one iota. Here's what else Elon Musk says. He says, "Hey man, hey Americans, you're not having enough babies." Listen to some of the things he said in the last year.
Yeah.
You're not having enough babies, and this is going to have an enormous economic impact on our industry and our capabilities as a nation and everything else. So he's addressing issues that come right to the core, American families. And he's addressing issues of economy, which we need to talk about. And then you have Jordan Peterson, who's saying, for God's sakes, clean up your bedroom. And I don't think Jordan Peterson is saying this directly, but he's saying, young men, go find that adventure. You see that thing over there called the Armed Forces? For God's sake, you're 18, 19, 20. Go join. Go find that adventure. And when you find yourself in that adventure, be masculine. Come back. You know, we need you.
Here's something for you. Well, and one thing real quick. Hey, Glenn, Cat, and Gary, man, I appreciate you guys. If RFK Jr. ran on a third party, not that I would vote for him, but I could get behind that because he would split that freaking Democrat vote.
Would he, though?
He would take enough of it. You don't have to take much.
But you would have those people that are still on the fence about not liking Trump just because of all the shit they heard going, hey, we've always heard how great Kennedy was, and there's a Kennedy, and that's Robert said, and they'll put that vote on there too. So that third one still fucks up. I think it fucks up everything.
What happened to the Green Party with like Ralph Nader? Like, it used to be like, you used to count on him. Every election, they would siphon off, several of the lefty votes and then be like, yes. And then he just stopped.
You get the dudes running this year on I don't know if it's Green Party or whatever fucking color party it is, but they're pretty adamant. They'll take a small smidgen, maybe 1 or 2%. But if you can get a legitimate guy like an RFK running third ticket, come on now, it's all over but the shouting.
Wait, so does this seem? But does like this past couple elections and then this one now, does it kind of seem like a little like out of sorts, like or is this like kind of, has life always been like this?
No, this is unprecedented, especially because of COVID. But I think you have every right to feel this way, Joe. Honestly, I don't think it's abnormal for you to feel this way about the institutions and things like that. They haven't done much to earn your trust or our trust, for that matter. We seem to get shit on by our own government quite a bit. But I really think, going back to kind of Doc's point, I know he's half kidding about the Peterson Musk ticket, but I think the type of people who can fix everything are the type of people who don't go into politics to begin with. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like that saying that people said, like, if you like your desire to be a politician should disqualify you or something like that.
That's it, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you make it sound doom and gloom, but I see that I take that as a optimistic point of view. Like, I've never seen so many people my age paying attention to politics than today, or at least who the fuck is controlling us. I can walk around and I hear 15-year-old kids talking about politics. That's never fucking happened in my 40 years on this planet. I see that as a good thing. So we're all united left or right in our distrust of the government. And that might be a bad thing, but at least that means people are fucking paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. Yeah, but I was deployed with Fast Company for George W's election night. And I can tell you, man, having them 17 and 18-year-olds all together as we were out doing our fucking thing, we were all pretty stoked on that night. The next 8 years, I may not have been all that stoked for everything that the man did. But on that day, against the guy that he was running for, there was a lot of excitement going into that night. And new Corps, old Corps, new Army, old Army. Like, I can't tell you that there's not something special about today, but we've said that for a long time, that there's something special about today.
People were pissed about when Clinton won. I remember being a kid and all I heard in the fucking car every drive was Rush Limbaugh just going off about fucking Clinton. And it's, people are pissed pretty much all the time about this stuff. I just think a lot more people are paying attention, and that's good. And that's on one hand, that's what the Marxists want. The Marxists, the last step of the Bible is to infiltrate every institution and break them. How are they breaking all of our institutions? They're making people distrust all of them. 5 years ago, you never would have heard the average conservative say defund the FBI and the CIA. You would never see so many anti-military conservatives just a couple years ago. Like Doc's talking about nobody joining. That's unprecedented. So they're winning right now. Nobody fucking trusts any of our institutions now, even the supposedly good ones, the ones that should serve a good purpose.
Randall,
So-
you were on point, man. And I saw you did a video about this the other night. Like, man, I have never seen so many people on the right so anti-military and so anti-law enforcement that I have seen now. I don't know how this like spawned up, but it is nuts. It is nuts. But I also want to address your point earlier. You were talking about like people being more in tune. Like, there's a lot more gun owners now. Like, there are so many firearm owners. I mean, they're
on the left and the right. The
Yes.
leftists are picking up guns too.
I had a I did a I don't even know if I want to say this, but no, I'm gonna just carry on.
Don't
Well,
be a bitch.
Like you're saying about the anti-police and anti-military sentiment, though, I've been doing both a long time, so I've seen it do like this, go up, go down, go up, go down, and I can say that it does also depend on who's kind of running the country, and we've seen it when it started in after Ferguson and things of that nature, who the political party that was running the show, and then pride in the military and the police during another 4-year span. And then now it's back down in the shitter again from another 4-year span. So I've never really seen a huge long trend of that where people are hating on the police or hating on the military. It goes kind of like up this, and it sucks for guys in the military and guys in law enforcement. But hopefully that's not something that's going to be staying in the shitter for too long, because God knows we do. I got to agree with you about where conservatives are saying, they want to get rid of all the 3-letters and 4-letter institutions. That's kind of a new thing, but that's because I think also with the way the world is going now, and they're opening up the doors to where you can see some of the shady shit that's going on in the background, which we never used to do. I mean, we only got our news for the longest time from those 3 or 4 channels that you had and the newspapers and things of that nature. And I think now as in Joe's, era growing up too, now we have a lot more freedom of the information wherever you're getting it from. I think that also helps too, and has changed a lot of minds and opened up a lot of eyes.
Yeah, well, there's so you're right. So I'm the one that said it. There's a lot of distrust in institutions, in family institution, religious institution, and educational institutions. And yes, government and news media takes most of the ire. Let's not forget, just months ago, we were listening to how, the FBI had infiltrated Twitter and was using this information against Americans and using it against Republican, politicians. But it wasn't just Twitter. The collusion was very, very clearly with the mainstream news media. And so, yeah, I mean, you look at this and you go, wow, why would we trust any of them? And if you're going to look at it as one of your barometric pressures, I'd say it's a fantastic thing that there's so many new gun owners. But guys, let's not kid ourselves. That also shows the distrust on the left, right, and center of those institutions. People saying, whoa, you know what? We got more preppers now than ever before. And we got more gun owners now than ever before. And I think it is absolutely a symptom of that distrust.
Yeah, and imagine doing YouTube videos on preparedness and Minuteman stuff 5 years ago. If your video survived a month, without getting taken down, you might get like 2,000 views on it.
Well, like Nothing
These
Fancy
days,
was the only dude doing that back then, and like that's why I think everybody knows him, just because like that's the only guy that did stuff like that. Like 10, 15 years ago almost now.
Right. The preppers used to be the nut jobs, but then in 2020, they were the only people not being dickheads staying in line for 2 hours to buy toilet paper. So joke's on them.
Yeah, remember they had a TV show called Preppers? I think it was called Preppers.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. They painted these guys as like, freaking nut jobs. Like they live in old nuclear silos and have stockpiles of food. And like nobody, matter of fact, there's a whole market dedicated to, survival food now, where you can buy like months of MREs essentially.
Yeah, but
It's part of the
nothing.
programming.
But yeah,
They
it's
did
funny you say
that with militias too in the 90s. my generation was raised to think preparedness was, a psychosis, and anything related to the militia was like right-wing extremism, which is funny because that's part of our fucking country's history. And if you're 18 to 45, you are the militia. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's part of the programming.
Yeah, very bad stigma when it came to our generations, when it came to militias. They're right renders out. They're going to overthrow the government. They're going to take over. They're goddamn. It's all Ruby Ridge and freaking. This is the dudes that are actually fighting over there in Waco. The guys that are in the freaking, inside the buildings, not giving up and killing federal agents and all things like that. So I know, since I've met some more, the one shepherd and meeting other militias from all over the country, seeing that, that was bad stigma that they put on, in some of these areas. And it's not like that.
True statement. And real quick, Brent. So, Randall, like, no offense to you. I love you. You're my brother from another mother. Your generation are a bunch of pussies. But JC, I saw you. I know. JC, if you're still in there, I saw you. Fast Company, same timeline, brother. Hit me up, stoichromatic@gmail.com. Let's talk some shit and chew on some fat. Come on. Brent, take it away.
I had a train of thought and I lost it.
I know, because I said pussies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the ATF fucked up so bad. Ruby Ridge, Waco, right? And then Oklahoma City bombing happened, and then it was like, oh, Timothy McVeigh, he's a militiaman. So then it was we have our out now. Let's point the crosshairs on that and divert all the attention away from our fuck ups at Waco and Ruby Ridge and everything else. So that's why it was such a bad stigma, in the 90s. Is they devoted all of their media attention against militia groups, and Timothy McVeigh was the left's poster child militia member. So
Louis down and clean, just all kinds of shit.
And it was fitting the narrative, just like you see today. What fits the narrative and what's always on the freaking the TV. The one or two bad things that happen that fits their narrative. Like now is the racial thing. With the bad shooting that went on in Jacksonville, things of that nature. It's whatever. They gotta stoke that fire so that they can run with that, and that can be their talking points. And they did it in the 90s too, and it freaking influenced a generation of dudes like me. I graduated in 94, so I'm right around that age. I can remember watching the shit on TV and then seeing Oklahoma and going, oh Lord, don't want to be that. I got to go out and serve. So if these guys are bad, then I might have to fight these yahoos, and that definitely is not what it should be.
No, I mean, Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh were kicked out of the Michigan militia. They weren't militia. They weren't allowed in, but that wasn't the narrative. And back in, 93, 94, you didn't remember the internet exploded in 94 when they figured out how to put JPEGs on there and a JPEG image, and then pornography took over. Yay. That's actually why that is.
You got a vice president to thank for that one, right?
Yeah. And so no, it took off, but today we have the internet, and so we can fact check, and we can hear another narrative. And at the time, we just couldn't. And and let's be honest, the American militia, with the cultural revolution that happened in the late 60s and into the 70s, and Black Panthers, and then you had all sorts of other stuff going on. It was pretty violent in the 1970s. Calmed down a bit in the 80s, but then exploded again in the 1990s. And so, but anyway, just generally speaking, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, kind of a dark period for the American militia. Fortunately, after the attacks of September 11th, the prepper and the militia movement came back in a very good way, and I'd say in a very positive, generally speaking, in a very positive light, and have panned out that way. So that's good to see. But again, I do offer it also as a metric, because it's not just your clean cut, God-fearing, voting, tax-paying guy. You have other militias out there too. You have Antifa, right? And you have, and there's some that don't look like me, but that doesn't mean that they're not conservative either. What's the one? I don't want to say this. Is it the NF not fucking around? I forget what that one is. But it's this long thing, and it looks like the new Black Panther.
And flack or something, not fucking around.
Yes. And
a lot of ND at the rally.
yeah, and and then they had a negligent discharge at a public rally. But that anytime you put like 800 dudes with guns, that's a possibility. And so, so they look like they need a little leadership and a little direction. But you know what? When you heard them talk, they weren't radical liberals. They weren't. It seemed pretty conservative to me. And so, there you go. The point is, I'm just saying that it's a metric that you can look at and say, wow, we're really unhappy with the way things are going in this country. But it also makes me think, going back to earlier comments during the show tonight, that maybe it is more important to have strong leadership at that state level that protects those preferences and ideologies and those identity groups. That might be a good thing.
So you think that'd be like a remedy for like a lot of the angst in the countries if everyone felt represented just like in their own state, maybe, and they can just go like live whatever state best represents them. Maybe the government would be just like less worrying about shit like that. I guess that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm leaving New York. I'm not going to sit there and complain because I'm going to be unhappy if I want to change New York. It's not going to work. I mean, I've done my fair share of work to try and change things, but why bother? I could, like, if I was in Tennessee, like, I want to move to Tennessee. I see a guy in Tennessee. They do have them now. People coming from New York to protest the gun stuff because of that shooting. Like, I'd be like that guy, like in Tennessee, like, oh, you guys don't need guns. They'd be like, get that. What are you talking about? Get out of here. You know what I mean? I'm like that guy, but in New York. You know what I mean?
They want people caring about what happens 7,000 miles away from them. Think about it. Like, look at the European Union. I lived there for fucking almost 20 years. The European countries, homogenous cultures, very different languages and everything. But driving around Europe, there's almost no point in traveling Europe anymore. It's the same laws. Everything looks the same. The only thing you get different is maybe some different tasting food, a different beer, and a different language. Other than that, it's all the same. Same fucking laws, same horseshit. I think that's what some people up there want for America. And I think that would be horrible. Like you said, we have the best freedom of mobility in history ever. Like you said, if you don't like your state, go somewhere else, and that's freedom right there. It's like, but I think, I think large groups of people, they want somebody in Southern Alabama to think and live exactly like somebody in downtown San Francisco. And you can look on, especially on Twitter. Like I said, I got Gavin Newsom tweeting at the Mississippi governor and people from California responding to that. Why do you give a fuck? If you're in San Francisco, you have your own problems. You have way more problems than people in Mississippi. But why are you giving a fuck about politics down there that it's 100% different? The contrast, like, I don't know, America, we truly are diverse in every sense of the word, race, culture, intellectually, we're extremely intellectually diverse, everything. We don't want to look like Europe, man. They banned smoking in bars in Europe like 10 years ago, and it was like night and day. Even though 80% of Germans smoked at the time, it was like, nope, fuck you, get out. And people were, and the Germans, that was the first time in a long time I ever heard Germans say fuck the European Union. And that was before Trump, but you could hear like some let's make Germany great again shit. Because they were already feeling the effects of this, the EU is basically the federal government for Europe. Just extreme dictatorship pushing down on these people. And it's really sad to see America going in that direction.
But we have been going in that direction a long time, ever since the end of the Civil War, when the federal government became the preeminent, force. And we several of you have already said earlier tonight. You said, yeah, maybe the president shouldn't be. It never was intended to be that important. We've made it that. Yeah, that's right. So let's, you know what? If we can't defund the federal government to the point where it's anemic, let's just ignore it. Let's have strong governors. Let's have a strong, Supreme Court, but let's have the strong state Supreme Courts too. Guys, America is more than, it's more of a experiment than most people even will stop and ponder. It's not just we're an experiment because we have, that First Amendment right? Like we're an experiment because we put together, damn it, where'd he go again? He's like the disappearing man. Okay, Joe, whatever. All right. Anyway, we're an experiment because we are an individualist. All right. An individualism, not collectivism, not an aristocracy, and all this other stuff. We all know that. But we're an experiment. Working overseas, and particularly in the South Korean public education system for a while, there was a Canadian teacher that I was working alongside of, and he was teaching the Korean kids this. He's like, the American Constitution is very unique, and I couldn't believe this Canadian saying this. He's like, in Canada, we have the right to life, liberty, and good governance. He said, but the Americans don't do that. They're the only constitution in the world that said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so that emphasis on the individual, the pursuit of happiness, rather than the collective, good governance. So we're already this radical idea. And then we started mixing, races and religions and ideologies and all this other stuff. Well, the way we protected that is we said, well, we are 13 different nation states. We're 13 different nation states. Now we are 50 different nation states. Our nation states don't have to be the same. We're not seeking homogeneity. And yet that's what we're, like you said, Randall, that's honestly what we're getting. And we're working towards that unremarkable, place called the European Collective. It's where we're pushing ourselves to. And I'm like, for God's sakes, let's not. I think for me, that's what's so attractive about the Libertarian Party. Libertarians, God forbid, God love them. I have some very good friends that are libertarians, but generally speaking, libertarians strike me as kind of losers. They want to sit and argue about cat food. And I'm just like, guys, pull your head out, of your fourth point of contact, and let's talk about the bigger issues. But the libertarian platform is brilliant. It's wonderful. And it's paying homage back to that notion that we are an individual based nation that's comprised of all of these separate nations, 50 different nations. So let's go back to that. Everybody says, oh, you're going to go into the balkanization. And they say this as a pejorative. And I'm like, no, that's not a bad thing, guys. That's what we were supposed to be from the very get-go.
No, I feel you. And there are, around this country, there are some strong grounded cities, and there are some strong grounded counties. Unfortunately, there's not a strong state, in my opinion.
It's funny, all the stuff we're dealing with now was called 250 years ago. Look at all the conventions after the Constitution was written, and all the colonies had the same complaints. You had the Great Compromise because the states were worried about the federal government getting out of control. Read the Anti-Federalist Papers. That was the major concern, and here we are dealing with it. So how much worse would we be if they hadn't thought about that shit that long ago? Because Stoker referenced the 10th Amendment. That's a pretty important one right there.
Pretty important.
And like Stoker said, you can't pick and choose. You're either going to follow it or not. So that's kind of where I kind of lean on the libertarian side with abortion. If they want to murder all their babies in California, I got to back out and let them do it. I mean, it's less commies. We got to kill in the war eventually. But sorry, man, it's their state. Do it. I know we're supposed to protect life, but that's what they want to do over there. I mean, how do you combat something like that without violating the 10th Amendment?
Sucks.
And is again, as soon as you grant the federal government the power to stop what they're doing over there with that, it's going to come right back to us probably twice as hard next time they're in charge.
So, Randall, I'll answer that question. How do you combat that, right? When Roe v. Wade was overturned, I'm a staunch anti-abortionist, okay? I'm not a pro-lifer, not at all. Can't call myself that. I'm an anti-abortionist, and pretty staunchly so. But the overturning of Roe v. Wade didn't do anything for me, didn't do anything for my family, and that's because here's how I personally combated abortion. I did it the same way my mom and dad did with me. I turned to my kids, and we sat down in the kitchen and over dinner, and I said, hey, here's the thing. We're the Larsons. We don't kill our family. It doesn't matter. I mean, I want you to be married. I want you to have children in the church. I want all these wonderful things. I'm a conservative. We're Roman Catholic, for God's sakes. No, that's what I want. But I can also look them in the eye and say, you will not have a baby that isn't born in love. Because I will love my grandchildren. So we're Larsons. We don't kill our own family members. End of the abortion debate.
So you mean you didn't get the state involved to solve the problem for you?
Surprisingly, we just didn't call them that day.
Because that's most people's answers these days. Call the government. Let them fix it because they're so great at it. Let them fix a problem that doesn't affect me 2,000 miles away. That's what people want.
Well, if I have an idea, it needs to be law immediately because, I like the color green. That needs to be everybody's favorite color.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Scariest sentence in the English language right there.
Yeah. All right. So you guys ready to hear my crazy idea of how hey, there he is. He's back. So
Here I am.
You're here in time, Joe. I've got my
Okay.
idea of how you split the Democrat Party ticket. So you have somebody run as an independent. Let's say it's Kennedy. And what he does is he promises sex robots, right? Hear me out. He promises sex robots to the Democrats. Now think about how many male feminists would disappear and we would never see them again. Like they would die of dehydration in some closet with a sex robot. They would never vote. And that's how you split the Democrats.
Dehydration.
That'd be the NFL version for the left. Keep them distracted.
That's it. Sex robots. I'm telling you, this can happen.
What,
I think there's truth to that.
Dot? So if you had your choice, though, of being a member of the Bull Moose Party or the Sex Robot Party, which one do you choose?
Sorry, Elon Musk. I'm going with.
I gotcha.
I'm sorry.
All right, guys, we're at the 1 hour, 48-minute mark. I think it's a good time to start wrapping it up. Throw that freaking smoke out there to the LZ and start marking it for the incoming bird. Get the hell out of Dodge. So we'll start going around. Just final thoughts. If you have your own respective YouTube channel, by all means, pimp your own channel and let us know what you got coming down the pipe. But going around the horn. First up, Will, you got the con.
All right, hey, we've had a great discussion tonight, bringing up a lot of points, especially about the election. I think the big thing for me is, hey, it's still early, so we still got a long way to go. Hey, try not to get disillusioned. Pay attention. Do yourself a favor and don't just get in one bubble and listen to one set. I tend to like to go and even go to the sites that I don't normally agree with just to try to get a full picture or at least see what they're saying about us. I have a YouTube channel, still haven't doing it. I got a little baby, so it's hard to get that and working and all, but had a good time. Can't wait for the next one. Y'all stay safe out there.
So 2024, I don't have high hopes for a positive outcome. Sorry, Will, I'm disillusioned already. My ideal situation is not necessarily any Republican winning, though I wouldn't be opposed to it, but the Marxist left losing. That's a win in my book. So I'm not a big party guy, but as for the candidates that we've seen so far, Vivek, I think, is Trump 2.0. Trump himself is in hot water and kind of dividing the party. DeSantis, I think, suffers from some of the personality stuff that we saw in candidates like Ted Cruz in 2016 that he's going to have to deal with. His record is impressive, but I don't think people vote based on record. Americans tend to veer towards a cult of personality, which is why Trump won in 2016. So I guess I'll just throw my hat in with Doc for a Peterson Musk ticket and hope for the best. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with the rest of these debates. Hopefully the Republicans shed the dead weight like Mike Pence, Hutchinson, and Christie. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, great talk, guys. I'm always happy to be here. Like I said in the beginning, I'm all about the person who is going to limit the government the most, and so that's about the best we can do. And if you're worried about what's going to happen in the next year, prepared lives matter. Do something about it.
Hey, and Patriot Sark, you see, I got my door closed. Thank you very much, man. I saw that before you did. I concur. I am a 10th. I'm a 10 amendment kind of guy. You pick the amendment, and that's what I'm for. That being said, I'm also, whoever ends up running against the left, commies, leftists, whatever the fuck they are, whatever the flavor is today, I'm all for it, and that's what we got to do. And if you do nothing, you have to read the tea leaves and say that in 2024, if a couple things happen, shit's going to get real. So if there was never a time, you better be ready now. Don't be like the dudes on the coast who live in Jacksonville, North Carolina, who only go to the store to buy plywood to batten up the hatches when the storm is literally 24 hours. You can see it now. So fucking get ready.
Okay, it is. It's a long haul. You got a long haul here, and you need to pay attention, because if you want to win, at that federal level, you better pay attention. On the other hand, you've already heard several people say, maybe it's that you're not trying to win. You're just trying to make the other people lose. Now you need to pay more attention, because that's very strategic voting and everything else. So I'd say you even need to pay more attention if that's your game plan. I will once again say that pay attention at local levels, and I specifically mean state levels here. Maybe that's the more important race for you personally. You'll have to decide that for yourself, but it may very well be that that's the more important race. So with that said, I'll go back to what Pistol Pete said. Yes, don't shut down. I don't have any trust in the institutions either. I'm bitter and cynical, but that's not a good rationale of shutting down and not participating. All right, let's take this one day at a time.
Yeah, I don't have any sage closing argument, but if you guys, I saw a couple of interesting things going on in the chat. So if you guys want to, hit me up, continue a conversation or something, I'm at variable.knife on Instagram, like Clear and Present Danger. All right, that's it.
All right, I appreciate everybody jumping on tonight. Had some fantastic guests. Wasn't expecting Randall from Grunt Proof or Stokermatic to jump on, so I appreciate those guys coming on here and discussing with us. Okay, sorry we've had some streams not happen the last couple of weeks. Been very busy. Had a lot of things coming down the pipe, and sometimes just gotta put stuff off. But I think we had a great discussion tonight. We welcome back guys like Doc and Chad that have been out of pocket for a while, and yeah, it's been great to discuss this. Okay, so I don't know what the next election is going to bring us, guys. It's a lot is up in the air. Again, I haven't solidified my primary vote yet. We'll see how everything pans out. I'm not hearing enough pro Second Amendment talk from any of the candidates yet. I want to start seeing that. All right, if you're going to get my vote, you need to have that. regardless, whoever ends up getting the Republican nomination is going to have my vote, because I know that it's going to be 10 times better than anything the other side puts forward. And with that being said, the other side absolutely outmaneuvers us, guys. If you were a man of the right and you vote right wing all the time, like I do, the left is always 2-3 steps ahead of us. Okay, they've mastered the ballot harvesting and the early vote and all that stuff, and our side is just taking the back seat for whatever reason, and we don't seem to learn our lesson. You know, they outmaneuvered us in the last presidential election, and they outmaneuvered us in the midterms. We barely squeaked by in the midterms. we almost didn't get that one, guys. So who knows? I don't know how this is all going to pan out. It's nerve wracking. So we'll see. Does anybody have any saved rounds? Stoker, you got something? All right.
I got some. Think about it. Think about it as a military. Know your chain of command. The dickhead way the fuck up there in one branch can't save America. Can't change your life. Can't change your country. You got to start at the local level. That's what matters. All the dickheads I know that they know useless statistics about other men who play sports, but they don't know anything about the Constitution. If you don't know where to start there. Fucking read the Constitution. Pay attention to your local politics. Stop being part of the problem. And like Brent said, that we're getting outflanked. We're getting crushed because at least the left knows how things work. They know how to fucking defeat us and break the system. We don't even know our own goddamn system enough to defend it.
You're right. Paraphrase, don't be a pussy.
And I've been all over
I'll be
the
a
world,
bitch.
though, but I'd still rather be here than anywhere else.
Or Stoker, just grab and buy it. All right. Have a good night, fellas.